Hey, this is Greg from GMH Audio, and I'm going to show you a trick to turn the ubiquitous SM57 into a lo-fi omnidirectional microphone. If you're familiar with microphones and recording at all, I'm sure you know the SM57 is insanely common, maybe one of the most popular mics ever, maybe the most popular mic ever. It and its brother, the 58, are pretty much ubiquitous and industry standards, but sometimes you want something different. And I'm going to show you how to get a different character out of this. What if you want your SM57 to sound more like something like this? This is a Shure 51. It's mid-century, late 40s, early 50s. I don't know the exact year. But I use this for like a lo-fi character microphone. I'll maybe set it up in like room on drums, or maybe in that kit mic position that I showed in my recording drums with one microphone video, to get a kind of weird lo-fi character microphone, which you can bring up to mix in with the more kind of standard microphones on the kit and give it some extra vibe and energy. So this is definitely a cool mic. I would say maybe cooler on a surface than this, but how can we turn this into this effectively? Well, the 57 is unidirectional. It has a cardioid pattern. It only really picks things up in front of it. This is an omnidirectional microphone, and it's got a way lower fidelity sound. Not because it was necessarily designed that way, just because that's what was possible in the late 40s when they made this microphone. This has definitely more of a hi-fi sound. I think calling a 57 a hi-fi mic might be a little funny to some people, but compared to this one, definitely. So the way that a 57 makes itself cardioid has to do with these little vents down here. And if we cover those vents, it actually becomes way more similar to a omnidirectional microphone. By the way, that's why you shouldn't cup the mic. There are other people on YouTube that have gone way more into detail about that, so I'll refer you over there, but be careful with that. So anyway, let's see. All we need to do is cover up these vents. Well, I made this little tool to do it. It's not pretty, but it works. Essentially what this is just some paper towels and tape. And I just wrapped paper towels around this, taped it up to keep it nice and tight and in place, and now these vents are more or less covered. So I'm going to show you a quick example of me just speaking into the microphone normally to show you the difference that this makes. Check, 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 check. So here you can actually see these waveforms of these things we're messing with. Here's the normal one and here's the omni one. And if we're just looking, you can tell here's in front, here's on the side, and here's from the back versus this. It still definitely gets less signal, but more than it does in the standard configuration. I think maybe paper towels are not quite enough to fully block out all the sound. And something you might also notice is it sounds a lot more lo-fi, filtery, and kind of weird and shitty, but we want to lean into that for this sort of thing and try and use that in a cool, creative way, rather than, say, just making it sound worse like it might do if you're cupping the mic just trying to sing regularly. Let's look at that filtery sound in detail on the front microphone. Check, 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 check. There's normal. Check, 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 check. And there's the omni version. So not only you have a little more room sound because it's picking up the sound not from right in front of it, but also from all around it. And you also have this weird filtery sound because when you mess with the polar pattern of the microphone, you're also messing with the frequency response and the way it was designed. So this is not how the mic was designed to sound, but we can make it sound like this, and it can be cool. So how can it be cool? I think it's cool on a drum set. When you put this in kind of this kit mic position, and you maybe already have close mics, room mics, a bunch of hi-fi big sounding mics, you want something a little more lo-fi, maybe you're going to really distort and compress it, and you want kind of a character microphone. I think this is a good option for that. So let me show you this now. Here's the drums. I'm going to do it first with the normal 57, and then the 57 with the paper towel Omni mod. So let's look into that in a little more detail. Here I have first the normal one, and here's the Omni one. So they sound pretty different. The mid-range is definitely way different. I think that has to do with a lot with that frequency response characteristic, but it's also has something to do with the polar pattern. You're picking up a lot more of that kind of cymbal harshness. You're picking up more of the ring of the snare drum. Listen to the snare drum ring in particular. And the mid-range of the bass drum, that ring of the snare, way more emphasized than the stock mic, which is the kind of thing I'd be going for if I was using this microphone like this. Let's also listen to the toms, because the toms in this case are kind of more on the side of where the microphone is. You're getting a lot more tom mid-range, and you're getting just a kind of different character. It's got this lo-fi thing. It definitely doesn't sound like good. I would not necessarily do this as my only microphone unless you were really going for a certain character. But to mix in as a character microphone with a full recording of drum set, it can be kind of cool. And I mentioned earlier how it might compare to this sort of microphone, so I did the same exact thing with that microphone. Let's see what that sounds like. So besides my spectacular drumming, what kind of things do we notice? There's definitely that pronounced mid-range in that kick drum and the ring of the snare drum. Let's compare that to the modded 57. Out the gate, I'll say the 57 has a lot more high end. Even in this more lo-fi configuration, it's way more hi-fi than the vintage mic. But that mid-range hit and that kind of omnidirectional wash from the cymbals is definitely still there. And let's go back and compare that to the stock 57 one more time. Sounds great. It would be a great side snare mic, but it doesn't have that interesting mid-range character that I'd be going for with something like this. That's my trick for making a 57 Omni, and gets it a little more in the ballpark of this vintage 51. If you don't have a vintage omnidirectional dynamic microphone, this can at least get you some of that character with something that is really common, and gives you another use for the good old 57.